Smile, you're on candid camera. We're recording you right now. Sorry? My name is Nikki. Yeah. I've got a manifest with everyone's name. That's how I know your name, because it's written right here. So we're just waiting for the rest of the group to get loaded up in the back. All right, it looks like everybody is strapped in. Aloha and welcome aboard Air Kauai. My name is Nicky Roeder. I am your pilot today. And before we get going, the volume knobs on your headsets have been deactivated, but I've got volume knobs up here. Is my voice okay, or should it be louder or softer? Sounds okay. And the music is not too loud and overbearing? All right, then that's one item. The second item, I need to verify that everyone attended a safety briefing. Did that happen today? All right, I see you got your yellow life jackets on. At this time, your seatbelt should be fastened. Go ahead and give it a tug. Make sure it's snug and secure the way it's supposed to be. And I'd also like to point out, too, that the air conditioning is on. Up here in the front, there are 2 vents in the dashboard. We've got another 2 up above us in the center console. That's the same in the back row. 2 in the center console plus 1 over each side seat. If you get too cold, you can completely shut the airflow off by twisting it, or you can twist it wide open. And notice that they all tilt and swivel. Please feel free to adjust those air conditioning vents any way to make the flight more comfortable for you. So before I call the control tower for departure, do you have any questions for the pilot? You look like you're ready to go. All right. Well, thank you very much for your attention. In that case, it's time for me to call the tower. We'll get this little party started. They're thinking about summer. It's not quite summer, but it kind of feels like summer today. All right, the tower just gave us a takeoff clearance, so get those cameras ready. Let's go see Kauai by air. Up, up, and away. Our departure path takes us over the north ramp. Now that's where we park the private jets, and there are a few private jets out there right now. But when you see a commercial airline like Southwest parked there, that means usually a mechanical problem. Well, at least they made it all the way to Kauai before the mechanical problem. And that just means that the pilot and the crew, they get a little vacation on Kauai like the passengers that they brought here. Well, it did turn out to be a nice day, and we might see a few raindrops out there today. Technically, there's some rain falling out the left window. Technically, we're still in the rainy season. We have two seasons out here in Hawaii, the dry season and the rainy season. And the rainy season runs from November until April, so maybe we've got another couple weeks, maybe a month, I don't know. It's been a very wet, rainy season so far, despite today turning out to be a perfect day for a round of 18 at the Kiele course. And then, look, you can see there's a fishing boat to the left of us outside the harbor. There's one that just passed the breakwater to the right of us. And I want to mention to you that the Hawaiian Islands are the smallest landmass in the middle of the biggest ocean, which is kind of a long-winded way of saying order from the seafood side of the menu while you're out here. You cannot go wrong with the fresh catch of the day. Wow, look how nice this day turned out to be. But you notice the Hula is a little bit muddy. There was a bunch of rain yesterday, and we didn't know what we were going to get today. The forecast was a little bit confused. They said it might rain, we might see sunshine. So this river valley was seen in the first Raiders of the Lost Ark movie. That was 40 years ago. Harrison Ford was just starting out in Hollywood. He had already made a couple of movies, but Indiana Jones was his breakout role, and this is where Indy escaped from an angry mob of headhunters by swinging on a vine and jumping onto a seaplane that took off from the river that's to the right of us now. Sometimes you'll see ATVs on the dirt road down below. This is Kipu Ranch, and that's one of their activities. Another one of their activities is at the far end of the pasture. There's a second dirt road up there, and if you follow it up into the foothills, you might be able to spot the launching platform for their zip line. It kind of blends in because they painted it green so that it looks like part of the forest. We're just coming up on the dirt road now, and we're about to cross over the wires from the zip line and follow that dirt road to the left. And there's the green tower. So this is one of the first working ranches on the island of Kauai, dating back to the 1800s. And other than zip lines and ATVs, yeah, they still have lots of cows out there, as you can see to the right of us. And we're going to take a little peek over the Haupu mountain range. To the left of us, down at the shoreline, the resort town of Poipu is very popular with visitors here because of its sunny and warm reputation. Long before that was a tourist mecca, it was a sleepy little plantation village. What kind of plantation? Follow this ridge down to the flatlands and you'll see the sugar mill. So for 150 years, that was the main activity on this side of the island. And about 17, 18 years ago, they shut the mill down and the last of the stalks of sugarcane was pulled out of the ground. They don't do that anymore, but just to the left of Waitā Reservoir is the town of Koloa, and the town's name is comprised of two Hawaiian words, ko, meaning sugarcane, and loa, meaning tall. So that's the place of tall sugarcane, or at least it was up until about 17 or 18 years ago. So back at the right window, there's a ridge line off in the distance. If we crossed that ridge and kept going north, 10 minutes later you'd be looking at Hanalei Bay. And you will see the bay later on in the flight. Today, we won't be taking the direct route. Today, we'll be taking the scenic route around the Garden Island. We got the famous tree tunnel down there. If you have visited the South Shore, you've probably driven one. They look like, Disneyland down there. The cars underneath the tall eucalyptus. That's Malohia Road. 30 years ago, every one of those trees was ripped right out of the ground by Hurricane Iniki. That was September 11th, 1992. And the hurricane was kind of the beginning of the end of the sugarcane industry out here. You'll see a huge tree farm down below. And in 92, this was all sugar plantation land, back when agriculture was still the top industry on the island. Today, you are the top industry on the island, tourism. So thanks for taking a Kauai vacation this year, and thanks especially for making Air Kauai part of your Kauai vacation. So we can expect a little turbulence as we cross over the Kahili mountain range. That's normal. We do these flights when the trade winds are blowing 25, 30 knots. And just for comparison purposes, when we took off from the airport on this flight, the wind was reported as 11 knots, so it's pretty light stuff. But as you can see, even a light wind blowing over the mountains will make it a little bit bumpy and bouncy. So up ahead we've got the tall, skinny Norfolk pine trees, and between the two sets of pines there's another man-made lake, Alexander Reservoir, which supplies water to the largest coffee plantation in the state. That's down on the South Shore. Out the left window now, Kauai Coffee Company is open to the public 7 days a week. So if you're down on the south side, with a little extra time, you can stop in and do the guided tour, help yourself to some free samples. Just across the street from that, you should definitely pull your car off the road where the sign says Hanapepe Valley Scenic Overlook, and you'll get a view of the valley that we're approaching now. So we have a different view of the valley, and that's kind of the fun of it. You can compare your aerial photos to your ground photos. We tend to go a lot of places where you cannot go by car, but there are a few places that you should recognize, if you've been driving around the island yet, or that you will recognize if you do drive and pass by some areas that you see on the flight today. One of my favorite locations. That big waterfall on the right side of the river, that's from Jurassic Park #1. Remember that? That was also 30 years ago, 1992. They had a helicopter fly up the valley and land right at the bottom of Manawai-Opuna Falls, bringing 2 children and 2 scientists to the island of dinosaurs. Unfortunately, they did not get to finish the movie because Hurricane Iniki interrupted, and so they had to fly 200 miles east to the island of Maui, which had not been damaged in Iniki, and luckily, there's a valley that looks just like this one on Maui. Honokohau Valley has waterfalls on both sides of the river. It's got lush green trees. And it's got a 3,000-foot tall ridge on the east side and another 3,000-foot tall ridge on the west side. And so it was by stitching together some scenery from Honokohau, Maui, with some scenery from Hanapepe, Kauai, that they finished the movie, put it out in the theaters, and hoped and prayed that people would buy tickets. And a lot of people did. That started a 30-year franchise that now boasts 6 titles. But the first one, that's always going to be my favorite. And a lot of that has to do with the scenery you're looking at right now. This is the Kahili mountain range. It starts down by the coffee plantations of Hanapepe. It runs right through the center of the island, terminating up on the north shore near the taro plantations of Hanalei. So this is the dividing line between the windward side and the leeward side of the island. The windward side of every Hawaiian island tends to be a lot more cloudy and rainy, which is exactly what the jungle likes. So beyond the mountains, we won't see as much of the forest as we do now. But if you're looking for blue skies and sunshine on any Hawaiian island, your best bet is usually going south or going west. We're flying west right now. And out on the west side of the island, well, take a look. It's one of Hawaii's most famous landmarks. Welcome to Waimea, the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. What a beautiful day. Couple of points of interest out the left window, the island of Niihau. That's our nearest neighbor in the Pacific, 17 miles across the Kaulakahi Channel. And at the back of the canyon to the right of us, 5 miles away, Wai'ali'ali, the mountain of rippling waters, is famous for being the wettest spot on Earth. Yesterday, you couldn't even see the mountain from where we are. It was buried under rain clouds, but that tends to happen a lot for a mountain that gets about 500 inches of rain in a normal year. So just 5 miles away from 500 inches of average annual rainfall, and here we are flying over Sedona, Arizona. And we actually do get Arizona-like amounts of rain. This side of the island is only about 15 inches. So this is what I was telling you about. The forest starts to thin out, and you can see the red dirt underneath. This is from the high iron content in the soil. So the Hawaiian word for the color in the soil down below is mea, M-E-A. Mea means reddish-brown, and mea is the second half of the canyon's name, right? Why mea? So the first half of the canyon's name, W-A-I, that means fresh water in Hawaii, as opposed to ocean water, which is Kai, K-A-I. Now here in Hawaii, we use the Y word to name rivers and streams and lakes, waterfalls, that sort of thing. That's a flock of kauae birds. You see the white wings flapping. We'll see more of those when we get around to the Napali. Oh, you know it as the Grand Canyon of the Pacific, but for 16 centuries, Hawaiians simply referred to this as the place of red waters. If you look out the left window, you can see a muddy river down there. That's Waimea. In fact, there are 3 of them in Hawaii. There's a Waimea. There's a Waimea on the Big Island. There's a Waimea on Oahu, and there's our Waimea down below to the right of us now. If you follow this rocky outcropping up to the top, look, there's people standing behind a metal guardrail. You can do that too. Probably more people get their view of Waimea Canyon from the Waimea Canyon Scenic Overlook than from a helicopter, but there's no reason why you can't do both. We'll swing back around and see what kind of a view those folks are getting. Well, that's a pretty nice view, isn't it? So we've got Waipo'o Falls off to the left of us. There's another Y word, this one naming a waterfall, as opposed to Waimea, naming a river down below. And then look across the canyon, and you can see where the clouds stack up on the rainy side of the island. This is the sunny side of the island. A little bit of rain falling in the Alakai Swamp, which is the world's highest elevation swamp, 4,000 feet above sea level.
No more toil and trouble, singing about that sweet old by and by. We'll all have lots of money, so we won't have to spend.
So there goes a car down Highway 550, and look, there's a family standing on the ledge there. I mean, you can do that too, but you want to be careful. If you're not at this point, then there's not going to be a guardrail. It's kind of a precarious spot to be dangling your pennies over the canyon. We're now entering Pu'ukapele Forest, passing by the lake. Sometimes you'll see cars parked there. They do fishing at the lake. Nobody out there today. At the town of Kekaha at the shoreline, the name Kekaha means literally the hot and dry place. This side of the island generally doesn't get much of a cloud cover. You know, there's hiking trails that run through the forest here. The exposed areas, it'll be pretty brutal, especially in the months of July and August. But most of the trails will take you through heavily wooded area, and with 100-foot tall eucalyptus trees, there's some pretty good shade out here.
Child will go hungry, we'll be smiling from the cradle to the grave. Hallelujah, I can't wait to see it.
That's the Makaha Ridge with the great big golf balls on its radar domes, which belong to the Navy, Pacific Missile Range facility. So as you would probably guess, there's restricted airspace around the Navy base. They don't want us messing around with their equipment. NASA has a base on this island too. Off to the right of us, there's a pair of red and white antennas and a great big satellite dish. Right now that satellite dish is tracking the International Space Station 250 miles above the planet's surface. I think it's kind of cool. Other than NASA and the Navy, well, it's a pretty remote section of the island, as you can see. We're about to cross over the Nuololo Ridge Trail. Not a difficult hiking trail, but a very long hike. It's about 3.5 miles from where you park your car up by the Navy base to the point where you emerge from the forest. And when you do, I mean, it's a great view. It's a spectacular view of the Napali Cliffs. But after you're done viewing the cliffs, your car is 3.5 miles away, and it's uphill all the way back. Still, I mean, look at the ocean. Even through the Whitecaps, you can see coral beds on the ocean floor from 2,500 feet up. I grew up in Los Angeles. This is the same ocean I used to swim in as a little boy, but I'll tell you what, Pacific Ocean does not look like this at Santa Monica Beach. See, there's more of the white wings flapping around out here. Kauai birds build their nests in the folds of Napali, which shelters them from passing rain showers. Looks like there's a very light rain shower at the far end of the Napali. So that's a nice shot you're getting there, Doug. This valley was seen in not one, but two different Hollywood movies. The beach out the left window, Harrison Ford and Hesh, the two of them romping on the beach 25 years ago in a movie called 6 Days, 7 Nights. Kind of a lighthearted romantic comedy. And before that was a little more serious fare, a dramatic film. It was a remake of King Kong, starring Jessica Lange and Jeff Bridges. And this is the place where they discovered the hairy beast and put him in chains and dragged him back to New York, which made him kind of upset. which I totally understand. I mean, if this is where I live and someone put me in chains and dragged me to New York, I would be very upset as well. So let's go take a look at the largest of the Napali valleys. This is actually the only Napali valley that you don't need a boat, a helicopter, or a pair of hiking boots. Continuing up Highway 550 past Waimea Canyon, you'll end up in Kokee State Park, and that's the location of the Kalalau Valley Lookout. And just so you know, most days the view from the lookout is obscured by clouds. Yeah, so it can be kind of a disappointing drive. Today it's not obscured, but look at the view we've got here. You know, if you drive up there, you can count on waterfalls and red dirt and green trees and blue Pacific. And of course, the one thing that the Napali Coast is famous for, the sharp lines and edges. So that happened slowly over the last 6 million years. And that process is working on the other Hawaiian Islands too, but they're much younger. So Maui and the Big Island, they won't have this kind of scenery in our lifetimes. It won't be for another 3 or 4 million years that you start to see this kind of scenery at the young end of the Hawaiian chain. There are campsites back in Kalalau Valley, and they don't let us drop people off by helicopter. They don't let the boats drop people off either. If you're camping in Kalalau, you got to walk the Kalalau Trail. Look at the shape of the landscape down below. And now imagine doing that with 30 pounds of gear on your back. You know, tents, and sleeping bags, stoves, food supplies, water supplies. I have no idea how people accomplish that. I know why they do it, I just don't know how they do it. Just the faintest hint of a rainbow down below to the right of us. We've got a little bit of sunshine breaking through the clouds, and it's hooking up with the raindrops. Try to get that out the other window, maybe just past Hanakoa Falls. We're going to make a full turn here so that the left side can see one of the largest waterfalls on the Napali, and one of the largest waterfalls that we're going to see on our flight today. That is Hanakoa Falls. Well, take a look at this view, huh? I mean, that is straight out of Hollywood right there. Now, here's a little editorial note for you. If you're on the Kalalau Trail and you see this waterfall, that's good news. It means you only have another 6 or 7 hours of walking to do before you get to your campsite. So there's the rainbow trying to come back out the left window, but it's very faint and it's blending in with the trees. And there's another flock of kauae birds sticking close to the drinking fountain. Next valley, Hanakapiai, is the wettest and the greenest of the Napali valleys. So that's the only one. Well, we saw a little bit of drizzle here coming out of Hanakoa, but there's more rain in Hanakapiai, as there typically is. And because Hanakapiai is closest to the parking lot, this is the one valley that gets the most hikers. Yeah, we've got clouds and rain. No point going back there. We're going to get soaking wet. Let's go back out over the ocean where the sun is shining, and that's bringing out the highlights in the kind of Mediterranean blue rather than Pacific Ocean blue just off of Hanakapiai Beach. Anybody standing on the beach? Yeah, there are a couple of people on the beach. So that's the home stretch. Now, keep in mind, even if you're going to do the shortest hike along the Napali coast, it's 2 miles from the parking lot to that beach, and then 2 miles back. So I couldn't even tell you the last time I walked 4 miles in a single day, but That's the easy hike on the Napali coast. We're coming around the corner. I was going to say, I'm just going to take a look at the parking lot, and it's almost completely full. So with, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 cars, there could be 100 people out there hiking today. And it's not bad because, you know, we're turning the corner now on the rainy side of the island, and there's a little bit of rain out here, but not a lot. Yesterday it was pouring rain out here. It wasn't looking real pretty. See, when we get a rain shower flying down the Napali, you see it coming, and then a minute or two later, it's gone. It's behind you, or we've gone around it. If you're on the hiking trail, you could be tromping through the mud for 2 hours before you get from one side of the shower to the other. But again, it is very beautiful scenery. So this is what you want to do. Before you go, you look offshore to the northeast. Here's our compass, and you can see it's pointing northeast. So this is the direction that the trade winds blow, and you can evaluate the clouds. If the clouds are stacked up very tall, they have a lot of vertical development, then you're probably going to be due for some heavy rain showers. And so to the left of us is the shallowest of the clouds, and if you follow that bank of clouds to where they're showing the most vertical development, there's the rain coming down just past the town of Princeville. Let me switch the camera back to the interior mode. I mentioned that I have a manifest with everyone's name. I want to give you a proper welcome. It says I've got the Simpson family on board today. Rose, Doug, Ken, and Cassandra. Aloha and welcome aboard. We've got Anna in the back as well. Anna, thank you for flying with Air Kauai today. It's turning out to be a real beautiful day. And I've been doing this job here for 25 years. I started flying in California, and one of my earlier jobs was to do the traffic report over the LA freeway. So this is a bit of an upgrade over LA freeway traffic. So you're looking at my favorite beach on the island. To the left of us, Honolulu. It's got all the amenities. Lots of free parking, shady trees, picnic tables. They've got grills if you want to bring some charcoal up and have a cookout. There are bathrooms with flushing toilets. There's showers. You can rinse off the salt water and the sand. And it's got a lifeguard posted, so it's a very safe beach. Now, before we get too far away from the shoreline, down below to the right and to the left of us, these rectangular fields, those are the taro plantations that I was telling you about. Sometimes I get kind of a puzzled look when I mention that. People say, "What? I've never even heard of taro. What are you talking about?" Taro is a staple crop in the Polynesian diet. It's used to make a dish called poi, which you are welcome to try at the luau. If you didn't grow up in a Polynesian house, probably you'll find the flavor a little bit on the bland side. But poi is extremely high in protein, so it's a Hawaiian superfood, a health food. And when we see the taro plantations of Honolulu, it means we're at the north end of the Kahili mountain range. We saw the south end of this mountain range at the start of the flight, back by the coffee plantations of Hanapepe. So I also do want to mention there's another scenic overlook at the town of Princeville. You want to stop there and get the camera out. From there, you'll sometimes see farmers working the taro fields. Sometimes you'll see surfers riding waves in Honolulu Bay. Sometimes the kayaks paddling up and down the river. And if it's been raining up in the mountains, you'll see waterfalls. That's Namahana to the right of us and Namolokama just behind it. Last week I had a couple riding up front, and they said, we're staying in Princeville, and we can see these waterfalls from the balcony. I said, well, let's give you a close-up look at the waterfalls, get some photos, and show your friends back home where you're vacationing. And we had a ton of rain yesterday, and you can still see a number of waterfalls out here. Even in the middle of the dry season, the main waterfall in the middle will flow, but all the others will kind of disappear. Today we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's at least another 6 or 7 waterfalls in addition to the main waterfall. And that kind of has the feel of a Hollywood movie too.
There are images around us and everything we see. Some are real and some are...
So we're going to leave Hanalei Bay behind, but we're going to pick up the Hanalei River now, and we will follow the river back to its source, to Waialeale, the wettest spot on Earth and the source of 7 major rivers that flow on the island. Hanalei is one of those 7.
Follow your dreams, it's really all that you can do. Give it your best.
This is my favorite part of the tour, coming down Hanalei Valley. We've got the Makaleha Mountains to the left of us, the Kahili Mountains to the right of us. The Hanalei River is underneath us. There's waterfalls that trickle down both mountain ranges, numerous waterfalls. And I like to see just as much for what we don't see as for what we do. No houses, no cars, no roads, no buildings, no shopping centers.
Give it your best. Don't you worry about what some may say.
Last year I was reading an article on, it was one of those health and science websites, and they were saying that our technological society is starting to have noticeable effects on our physical and mental health. And what they recommended is that everyone gets out into nature, even if it's just, a little tree-lined park. This is obviously more than just a tree-lined park. But they said when you surround yourself with nature, with mountains and rivers and trees, if you do that on a regular basis, they can measure the physical benefits in terms of reduced blood pressure and reduced, is that too cold for you? You want me to give that? There we go. And not just the physical benefits, but mental benefits as well in terms of relaxation, peacefulness, peace of mind, calmness. And that's what we get when we fly around the waterfalls and the mountains.
Follow your dreams and do what you love to do. What you love to do.
To take a look at the forest we're flying over, anywhere that trees do not grow, ferns do. We have 1,500 different varieties of ferns that grow in Hawaii. This view underneath us right now is an indicator that we're back on the rainy side of the island despite that huge patch of blue sky up above.
Makes me want to lose myself.
And we did get a little bit wet there, but look, now you're less than a mile away from the wettest spot on Earth, which is also the single volcano that formed all the land underneath you. So most of the terrain on the flight, you think that's what you've seen, it's all uneven. It's cliffs and canyons and mountains and valleys. And then you get this flat area up here which doesn't seem to fit the pattern. So it's interesting that it occurs on the side of the island where the wind blows. So the trade winds cross thousands of miles of Pacific Ocean, picking up moisture from the sea, and then that moist air moves over the plains, and the mountains force the air to rise, causing it to cool and condense into clouds. If you have small mountains or shallow ridges, you get shallow clouds and light rain, which is decidedly not what we have on the eastern face of Waialeale. The side of the mountain that presents itself to the trade winds is both tall and steep, and it's the geography of the mountain which has turned it into the wettest spot on Earth. See, look, today it looks like a huge Christmas tree that's draped with tinsel. Look at all the waterfalls we got out here. And you can see the opening in the volcano that allows the wind to reach the flat and steep part of the mountain, not the gradual slope. So we get to fly into the volcano, and for me, this is the coolest thing we do. We've seen a lot of beautiful scenery, but now we're going to fly inside a volcano. Hawaiians call this the pico of the island. Every Hawaiian island has a pico. And every one of us also has a pico. You know what your pico is? Your pico is your belly button. This is the place where the child, the island of Kauai, is connected to the Mother Earth. All these little waterfalls, these are umbilical cords which nourish the child. Kind of strange when you see it like this, with green trees and waterfalls, and this is the source of the Wailoa River. You can see that underneath us. But that's not how it started out. This was a lake of molten fire, cauldron of bubbling lava. Now, at some point, the lava built up so much pressure that it burst through, not this solid rock in front of us, but just as solid. Look out the right window. When the volcano blew, it took out an entire section of the eastern portion of the mountain. And then the lava, as it bulldozed its path down to the sea, that's what created the flat area up ahead. That's why it looks so different from everywhere else on the island. And the ridges that were left behind perfectly focused the trade winds onto the one location on this island that's geographically designed to produce the maximum amount of rainfall. So right there, that's the real miracle of the Garden Island.
Heaven is my home. Heaven is my home. Now this sweet.
So we have so many different trees. Trees from all over the world. The light yellowish green, that's Asian bamboo. Straight ahead, you can see Australian eucalyptus. The flat canopy of the Indonesian albizia, 6,000 miles from home. You may recognize that also from Jurassic Park #1. And then every once in a while, you might see an orange blossom tree. That is the African tulip tree, which has a home 12,000 miles away. So it's kind of an unusual collection of trees for a little island in the middle of the biggest ocean on the planet Earth. And that's another indication of how special the Garden Isle is, even among the other Hawaiian islands. Ken, there's some African tulip out here window. See the orange flowers underneath you? As far as you see, any direction you look, it's the forest that dominates the view. Let's take a look under the canopy of Albizia, and you can see the Wailoa River. We saw the source of this river in the waterfalls inside of the volcano.
Oh, this world is dear to me. Heaven is my home. This is where I love. raindrops start to fall, then the word that you miss.
Oh, yeah, a little wet here, but this is what the Garden Island does.
I've been down this road before. Heaven is my home. Now coming
So here we are at the edge of the forest now, and we've got ranch land down below. If we landed and got out, walked around, you'd find all the typical farm animals that you expect. There's horses, there's goats, there's cows, pigs and chickens are wandering around down there as well. So if the, just hypothetically speaking, if the boats and the airplanes that resupply the island, if they stopped landing here on Kauai, we could still manage to feed ourselves quite well. It's interesting because the population of the island today is smaller than the estimated population in pre-contact times. And the people who lived here for 16 centuries before Westerners showed up, they were basically a Stone Age people. They did not have any metal tools at all. In fact, they didn't even have the invention of the wheel. But they did know how to fish. They did know how to hunt. And you can see we could still get along just fine with what we've got here. So we got through the raindrops, but this is still the direction that the wind blows, and you can see the eastern shoreline is almost always whipped up into a white frost because of the trade winds. So these are bigger waves than we've seen just about anywhere we've been on the island today.
Waiting on you, open your heart, 'cause you have a friend.
Now if you look off to the right, Honolulu Bay, it's got a long, narrow channel, so the waves don't get as big inside Honolulu as they do along the shoreline. But the wind blows consistently everywhere. There's a windsurfing school that uses the gentle, calm water of Honolulu Bay. And if that's something that you've always wanted to try, well, this is a perfect spot to do it. In fact, it looks like windsurfing school is in session. So that looks like, to me, an instructor and a student paddling out to a point where they can stand up, and the instructor is going to try to see if he can get his student to get the hang of it. Fortunately, beyond that is the heliport. We've been all the way around the Garden Island, north, south, east, and west. We took a little detour at the wettest spot on Earth. Now with our journey drawing to its conclusion, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of everyone at APR Kauai and say, mahalo nui loa. Thank you very much for flying with us today. It's been my pleasure guiding you to the beautiful sights of the Garden Islands on this very summer-like day out here on Kauai. Back on terra firma. Thanks again for flying with us today, everybody. Have a wonderful vacation on the beautiful Garden Island. Aloha.